Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Joy Loverde, and she's the author of Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? The Complete Elder Care Planner. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
I'm delighted. Thank you for having me.
And so you wrote a book, for the most part, about seniors who are solo aging, right?
That's the one, Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old. Pretty much for people who are aging solo, but couples read it too.
So what made you decide to write this particular book?
I've been traveling and giving webinars and giving keynote speeches and presentations for the past 30 years. Mainly my focus has been adult children, and about 10 years ago, people started to come up to me in my talks and they'd say, I'm doing this for my parents, but who's going to take care of me when I'm old? And I knew 10 years ago, this was going to be the next trend in elder care.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot now as well. And so who else besides a solo aging senior might read your book?
Well, the children of people who are coupled, solo agers for sure. Many, many professionals use both of my books as a way to initiate conversations with their clients. You probably know from your personal experience that this is not an easy topic to talk about. And a lot of professionals would prefer to not even talk about it at all. And so the book is kind of a door opener, and they hand it to their clients and they say, hey, do you ever think about this? And they say, here's something for you and I to discuss over the course of the year or two.
So we find that it's hard for seniors to talk about some things. It's hard for them to talk about to their kids, especially end of life issues. That seems to be a big one that they don't want to talk about. And I always laugh and tell them we talk about everything in my family, even at the kitchen table. So there's nothing that hasn't been discussed. But I think we're the anomaly in the overall scheme of things. And so what's the difference between solo agers and those who are not aging alone?
Well, their planning has to be different because they're lacking safety nets for the most part. So if they get involved, let's say, with the care of someone else, they have to ask very specific questions. They have to have the legal documents in order. Do I have even the power to make decisions? They also have to protect their own finances. Kim, so many times people help their friends go into perhaps a nursing home situation and they sign on the dotted line, never realizing that they may be signing an agreement to pay for their for their friends' care.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that goes on. So legal protections, financial considerations, what's their plan B if they're not available? So solo aging has a lot to do with going to advisors such as yourself and asking people, the professionals, what should I be asking you as a solo ager? And there you go.
Yeah, we have a few of those. And so, unfortunately. But, for the most part, I know it's important to have those conversations. What do you tell your listeners and your readers as far as why it's important to have a conversation on this topic?
I think everybody does know that they don't want to be responsible for making a decision that may not be the correct one for someone. But what they also know is doing nothing. They probably by now have learned or heard of someone else learning the hard way of no plans in place and being just in a total chaotic situation. So, knowing that planning is a good thing and then doing it is another. I mean, there's just like, oh no, later we'll talk about this later, and it goes both ways, both the elder and the person that is thinking they're going to be picking up for the care. Both of them, no, let's not do this.
Yeah, my grandparents were not real forthcoming for the longest time. When they started declining, and except their one adamant thing was they wanted to stay at home, and that was it. They didn't really talk about anything else, but they just wanted to make sure that they could stay at home. So, but the reality is that was a long time ago, almost 20 years, and amazing how much time goes, how fast that goes. But it's so much more expensive to do it these days. So you really have to have those kind of hard conversations. About, do you have the money? What is it going to look like, and how, really, because you got to have to dig. And a lot of times people don't know the answers. So they kind of shut down. And, so you have to say, look, I know this is hard, but, I have some options. Let's talk about them. So I think that's, I hope that's, a whole lot that's, that they get from all of this as well. And so what do you find that the top 3 needs are to start planning now?
Well, that's a great question. The reason is because most people don't plan because they don't know where to start. It's just so overwhelming, right? So in this order, number 1, the topic of financing a longer life. Not even long-term care, just financing a longer life. Longevity is here to stay. People are living to 90 and 100. Do you have enough money? Right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is the topic of housing, just like you experienced with your grandparents. If they say they want to age in place, most people don't know how to age in place. So my other book, The Complete Elder Care Planner, has an entire questionnaire on the questions to ask if you want to stay in your own home, and most people do. And the third is the legal documents. As I mentioned before, people find out the hard way that they may not have the right to make decisions, or they get in trouble financially because they're not protecting themselves. So money, housing, legal documents, in that order.
We talk to clients a lot about putting a plan in place, because otherwise they end up in guardianship and without having a plan. And that's expensive. A lot of your money gets spent that way. And I tell clients, we make a lot of money doing that, but that's not the way I want you to spend your money. So.
Well, and imagine the break in the relationship when guardianship is the only way to go. We have to take our loved ones to court. Not a good thing.
No. And it's very painful for families to have to go that route as well. And so, because some of them are in denial. Some of them just are like, oh, I can't imagine doing that to them. So it's a real pain point for the person that has to do it. And so you always plan so that your family doesn't have to go through that. And so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how many times can we say planning is a good idea? So here's something that I would like to tell your viewers and your listeners that might help. So in my approach with my mom in particular, I went first and I said to her, hey, something might happen to me sometime down the road. And so I put together this list of people you could call so that you're not in a panic and you don't know who to call. These are my friends. These are my neighbors. These are my doctors. These are my lawyers. These are my financial planners. And I just set it up. And I said, so here you go. So this is so you don't have to worry about who to call. And then I said, and you could see in her face, she was very happy. She was so happy that I did that. This is when she was in her 60s, by the way.
Yeah.
And then I said, so Mom, do you think you could do the same for me? could you put a little list together for me? And that would help me out. And she did.
So see, that was very helpful. And I tell a lot of clients too, like when the kids are coming in and doing planning and they're like, we can't get mom and dad, to do it. They don't want to talk about it. I said, then you broach the subject differently. You go in and you say, hey, we did our planning today. It was so easy. It feels so good for having it done. You make it a positive experience, so that they're more inclined to want to go do it, because obviously it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be.
Exactly. There's no different than seeing if you could get your parents to exercise.
Yeah.
Same thing. So I had to do that too with my mom, and sure enough, she did come along with me and went on the treadmill. But it was influence. Are we the most influential person to bring up this particular topic? So I could tell you something really interesting that you probably know, but maybe our listeners and viewers don't. But who do you think the most influential person in the family is?
The most influential. And
Within a family unit.
And so most of the time I would think the moms would be, if
The
it's not a grandparent. And so
yeah, so it's the grandchild.
yes, I can see that.
Yeah, I'm sure you've experienced that. So if you need anything done, go to the grandchild, and I have seen grandchildren do miracles. They get them to quit driving, to quit smoking, to quit drinking, to quit swearing. I mean, it's just the magic of a grandchild. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's good, because I have a bunch of those that I love to be. So I imagine they probably could convince me to do a whole lot of things as well.
Yeah.
So,
They probably could.
So all right, let's switch gears just a tiny bit, and let's talk about wellness. And you talk in your book about 4 parts of wellness. And so why is it important for older adults to pay attention to all 4 of the points? So let's kind of walk through those.
This is just really simple, because it's not a given that we're going to need care in old age. Like my mom, died in her sleep at 92, never needed a day of care in her life. But she had the other 3 elements of wellness. So besides physical, we have to plan for intellectual, social, and spiritual wellness. And spirituality can be anything you want. And that is the 4th one. But if you don't want to plan for spirituality, that's okay. Except sometimes we ask those questions like, what's it all about? Why am I here? That kind of falls into the spiritual category. So 4 parts of wellness we can plan for. We all experienced COVID and let me just say isolation 3 years ago. For whatever reason, we had to isolate. We may have been well physically, but how did we do intellectually, socially, and spiritually? And that's why it's important to plan for all 4.
Yeah, that was a rough time for a lot of seniors. And
Right.
and depending on where they were at depends on how well they did.
That's right. How well they had prepared themselves for all those other parts. And so I say those are all equal, because we know from our own experience that we could fail miserably mentally if we don't have the other 3. Yeah. We can eat kale all we want, but sometimes it just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, no, I don't care for kale, so I can appreciate that. I know.
Right.
And I'll eat a different vegetable instead. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Me too, by the way.
And so, Joy, if somebody wants to learn more about you, how do they find you?
They could find me on my website, which is elderindustry.com. joy.com.
Joy, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a huge pleasure, and I look forward to our listeners getting a chance to go through your book. And so that book again is Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? The Complete Elder Care Planner.
Well, they're 2 different books.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, 2 books. Good job. And perfect. So author of both books, definitely grab both of them. And we look forward to having you on the show again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcasts as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.